Most of the time when we look at old video games, we tend to focus on the games and franchises we remember playing when we were growing up back in the 80s and 90s. This means officially released titles or franchises such as Metroid, Castlevania, Mario, Contra, whatever. However, if you love the look and feel of all of these old 8-bit games on your NES but are longing for a completely new experience, there's been a dearth of homebrew projects that have popped up over the past several years, bringing all new games that were meant to run on, or at least feel like they were running on original Nintendo Entertainment System hardware. These are games made by fans of the consoles, just like you and me, except they're way smarter than me because I can't do any of this. Anyway, here's some homebrew NES games you should definitely take a look at if you're wanting to play something new. First up is an NES game so new, it's technically not even released yet at the time of this video. The Adventures of Panzer, which for some reason I keep reading in my mind as the Pirates of Penzance. This is a side-scrolling action-adventure game being put together by Dave Nemeth, where you play as Blarg, a retired soldier who is excited about his newfound freedom in life, only to be called back into action by General Panzer, who shows up after 10 years. He needs your help to go on some big new mission, but most of the fleet is dead, and the only ones left are some other retired officers who you have to go begrudgingly recruit. I'm getting a Zap Brannigan vibe from General Panzer, and Blarg may as well be Kip. So you play as Blarg, fighting your way through 5 unique levels. I had a chance to play through the demo, which contains the first level, and although this level isn't terribly difficult, the boss fight where you have to fight Grok in order to recruit him brings back the old school NES hard boss fight feels. Also, the game design with your tiny pixel guy reminds me a lot of Broforce, which if you've never seen Broforce, I've got a full playthrough of it over on my side channel. I also just really dig the artwork for this game. The promotional materials all look really colorful and detailed, and I'm anxious to see how the final box art turns out. The biggest thing that jumped out at me right away when I played through the demo was the music. From what I've heard so far, it's excellent and definitely holds its own up against some of the all-time great NES soundtracks. Right now, the plan is to release this game on an actual physical cartridge that you could play on your original NES sometime next year in 2022. If you're interested in helping out with the project or just want to check out the demo for yourself, I'll put a link to Dave's Kickstarter down below and let him know Friday Night Arcade sent ya. For fans of point-and-click McVenture games such as Shadowgate, Deja Vu, or The Uninvited, we've got a trio of very cool spiritual successors. First is Infested. This was made quite some time ago by Graph Metal and takes the classic McVenture gameplay to an entirely new setting, this time trapping you on a space station that is overrun by hideous creatures, and all of the other crew that were on board are seemingly dead. There's an ominous Event Horizon feel to all of this, and you'll have to use your wits and whatever you can find around you to escape. I really dig the graphics and the use of colors here. You can totally see shades of Shadowgate in the set design, but also it's different enough to be its own thing. Bits and pieces of the story are revealed to you as you progress, and there are also a few clever callbacks to the original McVenture games thrown in there. Also, they got the music just right. Kimco NES games always had a specific sound to them that no other companies ever seemed to duplicate, and this game's soundtrack feels right at home with Kimco's 8-bit musical library. Infested is totally free to play off of Graph Metal's website, so definitely give this one a look if you're into point-and-click adventure. Next up, a point-and-click adventure game set in a Lovecraftian universe, From Beyond Prologue, released by Sucker Free Games in 2019. This is actually meant to serve as a short prequel to the 1934 book From Beyond by H.P. Lovecraft. You play as Professor Crawford Tillinghast. You find out that there's this mysterious lost village, and there have been all of these stories and legends about weird phenomena there, possibly even creatures from another dimension. So you do the only natural thing and form a one-man expedition to try and find the village and encounter all sorts of puzzles and monsters along the way. While I do enjoy the game's art design and the puzzles are straightforward, there are a few quality of life issues. The font can be difficult to read, which is especially annoying for a game that's primarily focused on, being a text adventure, and the music just isn't very good, unfortunately. But it is still definitely a point-and-click adventure game with lots of interesting locales to explore, as well as the usual control scheme fans of Shadowgate should be plenty familiar with. From Beyond Prologue was initially released on Steam and is still available there for a couple of bucks if you want to check it out. And rounding out the McVenture-style homebrew games, we're back to the developer Graph Metal, this time with a much newer game that just came out in 2020, Spectacle. Once again, they took the concept to an entirely different and unique location. This time you're stranded in a strange, mystical desert. The game's tagline reads, "Meet fantastical creatures, mysterious allies, and deadly monsters as you solve puzzles and piece together the history of the kingdom." Spectacle boasts a distinct feature I don't believe exists in any other McVenture game, and that's a degree of randomization. There's a specific dungeon in the game that randomizes the layout every time you enter it or die, and there's also some other puzzle elements throughout the game that are reshuffled each time you start a new game. That's pretty cool in that usually with these games, once you've beaten them, there's really not much else to do except go through the game again and see if there's any random interesting thing you may have missed along the way. Once again, this game is available for free right off of Graph Metal's website, and I'll put links to find all of these games down below. Getting back to NES-style homebrew games that can actually be played on your NES, check out Micro Mages from Morphcat Games. The story here is simple. The princess has disappeared and she's at the top of the numerous towers of the evil demon fortress. It's up to you, a tiny mage and all your tiny mage buddies, to climb to the top of the tower and save her from whatever evil lurks within. Micro Mages is a vertical scroller where you're trying to make your way straight upwards through these vertical corridors while battling enemies and figuring out the maze-like platforms and obstacles that bar your path. Once you get to the top of each tower, you'll battle a boss, and there are a whopping 26 levels in total. You've got a projectile weapon as well as a wall jump, and you can find other specialty items to help you out along the way as well. The game auto-scrolls upwards, although not at a consistent speed. It slows down quite a bit if you're near the bottom of the screen and then speeds up once you get near the top, which is neat and adds a little bit of tension. There are also plenty of checkpoints and even a password feature, just like the old days. The backgrounds all look really nice, and the sprite animations are just awesome, really well done, and the music is absolutely perfect. This is just an overall really exceptional project, and the game would be fun for the whole family or a group of friends. It could be played with up to 4 players with an NES multi-tap. Yeah, so this was released on an actual physical NES cartridge and built within all of the technical limitations of the NES. There's a cool documentary on the Morphcat Games YouTube channel showing the painstaking efforts that went into programming and optimizing this game to fit into 40 kilobytes in order to make it playable on your NES. They also do have digital versions available for purchase. You can purchase the ROM for a bit cheaper off of their website, or you can buy a playable version on your PC right off of Steam. Whichever way you choose to do it, definitely find a way to play this game. Last up for this week, it's a tribute to Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! From Megacat Studios comes Creepy Brawlers, released in 2017 on an actual NES physical cartridge, as well as now available for digital download on the Nintendo Switch. What do you get when you cross Punch-Out! With pretty much every horror movie trope known to man? Well, you get Creepy Brawlers, I guess. The story here is that you're at the local theater watching some horror movies when everyone starts booing and jeering the screen, calling the movie boring and not at all scary. Insulted, the hounds of hell reach up and pull you in, only instead of just torturing you for all eternity, they give you a chance to fight for your salvation by, literally lacing up your gloves and punching your way through all sorts of undead enemies. Aliens, Frankenstein's monster, and even evil clowns? Aw, crap! Similar to Punch-Out!, each fighter has their own fighting style and patterns with strengths and weaknesses that you'll have to figure out in order to win. And the control scheme, well, it's basically the same as Punch-Out!. All of the moves are there. While this certainly isn't going to replace Punch-Out! On anybody's top NES games list by any stretch, it's not a bad homage to the original, and I like that they took the boxing gameplay and combined it with a completely different genre and setting. Well, that's all for this week. I know I've barely scratched the surface on some of these homebrew titles. What are some other homebrew games you'd like for me to take a look at on the NES or any other system? As always, thank you for watching. Please don't text and drive, and I'll see you next time on Friday Night Arcade.